And I don't want to be using a word that was given to us by the spawns of Satan himself. It ain't nothing that you could tell me, well, we took the word back. Man, F that. You just want to use what the devil created. It ain't nothing about what them devils created is good for us and our people.
Don't want to waste any time. I really want to get into reviewing and reacting to this video here. The interesting part is that this is one of the content creators that you guys may have already saw that in the past really looked at one of my videos and kind of tried to like create his own narrative around it. A lot of you had already saw that and kind of like went at him about it, but it is what it is. I really didn't address the video. Reason being, I found him to be very intellectually dishonest. And when people are that extremely intellectually dishonest, I know it's intentional. You follow? And when they're that intentionally intellectually dishonest, they clearly have an agenda, they have a mission, and they have a framework in which they want to operate out of. So I look at it as just simply just being a casualty in war to his own narrative. So I didn't want to get into that kind of like back and forth with somebody that's already proven themselves to be intellectually dishonest, especially if you can look at that content and nitpick it apart and build your own framework and your own narrative around it. However, interestingly enough, this same creator, Mr. Philip Scott, he just did a reaction video recently. And I took a look at it and I said, oh my goodness, y'all gonna love this, because based on like the content that I've already been doing, you can't tell me that this man is literally not speaking our language, right? Whether he realizes it or not, he's literally making our point for us. But what we're going to do is we're going to look at his video very quickly, and then I'm going to give my commentary on it, and you guys are going to see what I mean. Okay. So just to give you some quick background information, Philip Scott, I guess, was commenting on how Don Lemon is no longer with CNN. From what he says in this video, one of his commentators point out to them that they're not really doing Don Lemon because of some of the comments that he's made about the Black community in the past. So he decided to pull up this video and kind of go through one by one all of the points that Don Lemon made in regards to the Black community. Guys, honestly, I didn't even finish his video because when I got to point 2 and I saw what Philip Scott had to say, I'm like, Lord, you cannot be serious. Please don't tell me this man just said all of this. And guys, when you guys listen to this video, you're going to see just like how like literally, dude, like, is that not what this girl has been saying this entire time? But let's go over it so you guys can see. So basically in the video, Don Lemon, like I said, is making 5 points on just the things that the Black community needs to improve on. What I want to get into is not what Don Lemon had to say. Like I said, I didn't even listen to the complete video. It's just that when he got to point 2, I was just so surprised how he was so in line with my thought process, yet treated what I had to say in the past as if he did not understand. So let's hear Philip Scott's commentary on reviewing or reacting to Don Lemon point on the Black community and the 5 things that they need to change. Let's go straight to point 2.
Now is the N-word. By promoting the use of that word when it's not germane to the conversation, have you ever considered that you may just be perpetuating the stereotype the masser intended, acting like a nigger?
Don brings up using the N-word. He actually said the hard R because I had to cut, part of that. Now, even though I do agree with Don on this as well, I do not like that word. I don't like that word being used. It's definitely not acceptable in my company to be using that word because our ancestors, that's some of the last word they heard when they died at the hands of the white supremacists. And I don't want to be using a word that was given to us by the spawns of Satan himself. It ain't nothing that you could tell me, well, we took the word back. Man, F that. You just want to use what the devil created. It ain't nothing about what them devils created is good for us and our people. That's why when I like when the nation say, look, we're going to call each other brother and sister, or we're going to say king and queen, or we're going to say something, but we're not going to be calling each other a word that came from the devil himself to our people, because that word was created to talk down to us and make us less than, and no other group. I see no other group, even to this day, take a word that was used for them and say it's a term of endearment. I think you have a mental problem in the Black community if you're taking the word of a devil and saying it's a term of endearment. I'll battle any of you about that because you're silly and you're crazy.
So I'm going to stop right there. Did you guys hear what he said? He said that you are basically crazy. You have a mental illness if you're going to use the word given by Satan himself and you're going to use it as a term of endearment. He said it's not happening. Here's the interesting part, and this is the point I've been trying to say to you guys the entire time. Why does it stop at the N word? Why does the whole ceiling of I'm not using what the enemy used against my ancestors, I'm not going to partake in that, and I'm not going to use it as a term of endearment? Why does it only stop at the N word? Why doesn't it go to black? Now, I do want to preface and say this. You guys that are already familiar with my channel, you guys are already familiar with me and my messaging. You guys know that I say that black is an ethnicity. It is literally the business of people that choose to identify themselves as black as to whether or not they're comfortable enough to see themselves that way, regardless of the history of it. The only issue that I take with it is how forceful so many people in the black community have been and jumping into other communities and insulting them, ridiculing them, calling them out of their names just because they don't want to identify as black as well. I told you, this seems like racism perpetuating itself. It seems like colonialism perpetuating itself. This time it's black people who are the colonizers. How are they colonizing? There's like that whole running joke where people say, what? Oh, I'm not black, I'm Dominican. And you guys know I'm Haitian, and you guys know the history between Dominican Republic and Haiti. But irregardless of that fact, I can put all of that to the side and still say this. It is not right for anyone to jump into the Dominican community and try to tell these people that they are black, especially if black is an ethnicity. I posted a video, which I'll post here later on in the video, talking about this. But let's get into Mr. Philip Scott's commentary. He is passionate about this, guys. Can't you see it? He is extremely passionate about the fact that no, you are not allowed to use that word. It is basically a sin against your own people to use that word. He doesn't care that you're finding some sense of empowerment. He doesn't care that you're taking back the word. My whole point and what I've been saying in my content, guys, is that that N-word is not the only thing that was taken back. N-word is not the only thing that the black community is using as a term of endearment. The black community itself, or black power itself, is another term of endearment that was given to the black community and that they're using in that same way. But you see the hypocrisy right now in a lot of these pro-black figures, that what they'll do is that they'll stop at these words, the N-word, meaning, no, I don't touch that. They see all the derogatoriness in that, but they don't see the derogatoriness and just their mindset and this whole black identity. So because I know this is very difficult, that different people, they have different levels of critical thinking. But because I understand that, let's dive into this N-word a little bit deeper. And I'm going to try to put it here on the screen. So it says in the English language, I don't want to say the hard ER, guys, and the hard A, so I'm sure you guys understand, right? I don't like it. I get him, but nonetheless, I don't like the hypocrisy in this. He has so much energy for the N-word, but he doesn't have the equal and adequate amount of energy for labeling people black. So let's get into it. In the English language, the N-word is an ethnic slur used against black people, especially African Americans, starting in the 1980s. References to the N-word have progressively replaced by the euphemism, the N-word, notably in cases where the N-word is mentioned but not directly used. In an instance of linguistic reappropriation, the term, the N-word, is also used casually and fraternally among African Americans, most commonly in the form of with the A, whose spelling originated from the phonological system of African American English. The N-word, then spelled in English nigger or niger, appeared in the 16th century as an adaptation of the French word nègre, itself from Spanish negro. They go back to the Latin adjective niger, meaning black. Like, guys, like, I don't even feel any kind of way, because I'm sure if you guys have been paying attention, you guys seen how all of these little like pro-black type of leaders have sent like their little minions in this direction. And it is what it is, but we know what we're talking about. We know what we're talking about. And we're not going to limit ourselves by that word. But let's continue. It was initially seen as a relatively neutral term, essentially synonymous with the English word Negro. Rather than demonstrating a hostile meaning of the word itself, early attested uses during the Atlantic slave trade, 16th to 19th century, often conveyed a patronizing tone that reflects the underlying attitudes held towards black people by their white authors. Building up on these mildly disparaging social meanings, the word took on a derogatory connotation from the mid-18th century onward, to the extent that it had degenerated into an overt slur. By the middle of the 19th century, some authors kept on using the term in a neutral sense up until the later part of the 20th century, at which point the use of the N-word became increasingly seen as controversial regardless of its context or intent. I don't know how else to say this, guys, but what Philip Scott just did, I would liken it to a person that looks at a tree and accuses the fruit for being poisonous, but not the tree. Guys, what is the root of all of this? You can even see it in the N-word. It goes all the way back to the original classifications that they made of melanated people. Now, this science is no longer used. That's the funny part about it. What did these colonizers originally say? They looked at these melanated people, the sub-Saharan African people, and they said that they were Negroids. Do you guys recall the original classifications that they used to use in terms of race? I remember very briefly in school, they would go over these race theories. They didn't tell us at the time they were race theories, but it was Negroids, Caucasoids, and Mongoloids. You guys recall this is during the same time that they tried to tell us that we came from monkeys. That's how humans came about from monkeys. That stuff is now outdated. They do not refer to people in the races of Negroid, Caucasoid, and Mongoloids any longer because the science was fake. It was false science. And that's the one thing I learned being in this country as long as I have for the last 3 decades. I learned that they will use false science. They will make up false science to justify anything. We're seeing it happening right now. God created man and woman, and all of a sudden, no, there's about 16 different variations. God created one race, the human race. That was it. My question then becomes is why is he stopping at the N-word? Why does he go even further? There's levels to this. You get what I'm saying? There are some people that are oppressed under the N-word, meaning that that's the prison that they live their life in. They live their lives in that paradigm. So when you speak in that way and you see yourself in that way and you see other people in that way, that means you have certain kind of relationships. He knows that. Look how he's speaking about the people that use the N-word. He's speaking about them in a very lowly, a very intellectually low manner. Like, oh my goodness, you're mentally ill if you say that. You just your way of reasoning is very unintelligent. You see his tone, right? It's there. Without even saying it, he's literally saying just how ignorant people who use the N-word are. Not only does he find them to be extremely ignorant, he finds them to be extremely offensive because clearly you don't understand that this is a word that was used against your ancestors before they died. But the problem is this, is that the only word that was used? If I recall, the reason that the Caucasoids, the reason that the Caucasoids thought it was okay to enslave your ancestors, my ancestors as well, is because what? They were Negroids. That is why. And guys, when I laugh, it's because of how, it's how stupid and evil humans are. It's like, the Bible talks about how they invent new ways to sin. Like it's how innovative they were to create something to do what humans have always done. Try to find a way to get over on one another. They literally created the concept of race. But prior to then, humans did not pay attention to race. The only time they really were paying attention to your race, or the only time human beings were really paying attention to your skin, is whether or not you had a disease. To make sure you didn't have leprosy, which ironically enough made you white. Like, you get what I'm saying? Here it is. You have Philip Scott, who's basically just with all that passion and vigor, like, oh my goodness, this is the worst thing you can do. Well, don't stop there. Let's keep breaking through those ceilings. And this is what I'm talking about. See, when I talk about breaking through these ceilings, it's a problem because they limit themselves. You see that? They limit themselves to only the N-word. But what happened if you break the ceilings of thinking of yourself as a black person? You breaking the ceiling of thinking yourself as the N-word. What happens if you break the ceilings of thinking yourself as a black person? And I really understand why so many people can't do that. And here's the truth of the matter. The reason so many people can't do that is because outside of the context of black, they don't know how to bring value into this world. They don't even know the value that's within themselves. They're so reduced down to their skin color is because that's all that they are. So that means they can only succeed in rooms with black people. They can only be around black people. They can only try to thrive around black people. Like everything is in the prism of skin, as if your skin color makes you uniquely different than somebody else. He called him the spawn of Satan. Well, the spawn of Satan, was it only ignorant and only evil when they called you the N-word, or was it also just as equally evil when they said that you were black? Why is the evolution of black the issue and not the insertion of black itself? Man, guys, you hear me. Why is it that the evolution of black is what he's seeing, what he's calling demonic, but not the insertion of black in the first place? Humans were minding their business, and suddenly someone comes along and says, nope, you're black. This gives me more than enough reason to enslave you. For many people, they can't see themselves out of the context of that. And you see why that's a problem? Because if you rip away everything that the devil handed over, all of a sudden people are ready to have a psychological breakdown. Now here becomes the issue. For some people, what they try to do, like Mr. Philip Scott here, I see how he's intellectually dishonest, so I'm going to deal with this piece. What they will attempt to do is to say, because I'm pointing out the fact that this entire race thing is a discrepancy, the entire belief system. At this point, being black is a religion, just like being white was a religion. Because they've created this into a discrepancy, what they'll try to do is throw detractions in there and try to make it seem as if I am denying the experience that black people, those said black people, went through when I'm Haitian. I mean, in a few weeks here, we're going to be celebrating May 18th, 1804, Flag Day. Like, that's what we're going to do. And we're going to know why we're celebrating that day. January 1st, we eat our subjumu. We understand why we do that. But see, I can still have clarity and a sound mind and be sane enough to understand that the introduction of race was evil. They're more focused on the color of the people that introduced this concept. No, the theology of this thing, the science of it, the method, all of it, it was evil at its core. So I'm sane enough to understand that. And because I'm sane enough to understand that, means that that's not a label that I can wear. I see myself as being a child of God. I'm a child of God. I'm a human being. And then we go through I'm Michelle and everything else that makes me who I am. Does not mean that I am now blind to the fact or ignorant to the fact that there aren't people that have biases about my skin color. You see, I can still have the freedom to be who God called me to be and still be aware of the people that have an issue with that. I'm a woman. There's places where I go where people are biased to that alone. I've been in places where people have been biased to my age. I've mentioned that. Biases are a part of life, and some people will enact violence on you. As a woman, like, sexual assault is real. So there are people that because you're a woman, they see that as being less than, and they exert their dominance in the form of sexual assault upon you. There are women that really go through this. That is its own unique bias, is it not? And this is something that's been going on before race was even introduced, before the concept of transatlantic slavery was introduced. There are still parts in Africa where women go through what they call female circumcision. There are all types of ways that women's, and this is not me speaking from like some feminist standpoint. No, this is the reality of life. If you've ever lived in the state of Florida or you're familiar with various economic stories, then you know how the state of Florida, elderly financial abuse is a really big deal. That is a big deal. People taking advantage of elderly people and abusing them financially. Basically robbing them out of their savings and everything. There are different ways that people will abuse you and take advantage of you. You can look at some nursing homes and what happens to certain people there. Do you think that they're doing that because they see these people as being superior than them, or because they feel like they can take advantage of those people? That's what people will do. In some instances, people are actually in a weaker state, more fragile. In other instances, the fragility is created. In other instances, the fragility is manipulated. In the case of race, that minority group was created. So now I'm going to go into a video I posted earlier. You guys are going to see why this video, it makes even more sense. The interesting part about this is that Black, a newly adapted term in the last few decades, is that it is the youngest culture of African descent in the entire world. If there was a younger one, please let me know. But Black itself is the youngest culture, right? So now, if I wanted to colonize myself as a Haitian immigrant, tell me what it would make more sense for me to come under the umbrella of. Would it make more sense for me to come under umbrella of the child, the youngest culture, or the mother, Africa? You follow? I would think you'd say with great reason that will be Africa. But why is it that it happens the other way? Contrary to popular belief, I don't care how much they try to force it down our throat, it is clear as day that it's its own unique ethnicity, its own unique culture. Let's talk about it. As a Haitian woman, one thing I know for certain is that people of African descent are scattered all across this earth, okay? They speak different languages. They eat different foods. They have different types of music that they enjoy. They have different customs, different traditions. They practice different religions. They are completely versatile and diverse in who they are. And I actually enjoy to get to know them. Some I'm going to gel with because of similarities. Others I'm not. And that's perfectly fine. But I enjoy still learning about different people, different cultures, regardless of what race and ethnicity they are. But I even enjoy when I see that they look like me and they're in different places. I want to get to know them. Here's the interesting part though. Imagine if I do meet one of these people and now I feel like as a collective we're all Haitian and now I try to impose that identity on them. When they're probably more similar and alike to the people that come from their culture and region, even though they may not look the same, than they are to me. That's this whole idea of imposing blackness on every single culture and ethnicity of Black people around. I think everybody, it's okay and safe to recognize that you have African descent and not be forced to be Black, which is its own unique ethnicity and culture. On occasion, here and there, I comment if I can, really more so on the TikTok if anything, but I am kind of like getting more and more away from that because first of all, there's a lot of comments that come through. So I want to get to a commentator that commented on this video and I found myself replying to their comment and I want you to see how this conversation went, okay? So this person said, Mother Africa is not even united in her own life and she was abusive and neglectful. That's why her children rebelled. I replied, my video addressed race and logic. As I mentioned, if one label is being forced on us, then African makes more sense than Black. Race is still an illusion. She now replied, or he or she, I'm not sure, race may be an illusion, but unfortunately, we are forced to acknowledge it because of white supremacy culture. So I replied, colonization lied to everyone. But to take the illusion and make it your full-blown identity simply robs you of your humanity and unique individuality. Has that not been what I've been saying this entire time, guys? But we know that there are people that they do not want, people who they consider to be Black, to have their own identity. This is literally why there's a problem. Because if they can keep you in a group-minded type of thinking and they can keep you a prisoner of your skin color, then guess who gets to be the warden? They do. But if you're not imprisoned to your skin color, then they don't have a jail that they can look over. But anyways, she says, or he says, well, I'm a proud Black American with my own unique culture and individuality. Why would I call myself an African when I have no connection with Africa? Guys, do you know how many African Americans do not want to be associated with Africa? Do not feel like they have an attachment to Africa. This is a real thing. And I'm not here to agree or disagree with them because ultimately at the end of the day, it is understood why they don't have an attachment with Africa. Even to the point that word African, or even to the point that label African American, this is why so many African Americans prefer to be called Black because they do not like the term African American. They don't. They don't feel like they have any connections to Africa. So I then reply, that is your prerogative. However, it's hypocritical to demand people not from Black culture to identify with it because of the color of their skin. Do you guys see that there? And this is the hypocrisy I keep talking about. This person said very clearly, well, okay, I see your logic, but why would I connect myself to Africa? I have no connection. But yet, what do I keep talking about? This imposing on all these people based on their skin color to be Black. If we're going to unify under one label, Black does not make sense. African makes sense. But are we going to do that? No, there's many African Americans that aren't going to do that because it makes absolutely no sense to them. But if they looked at this whole forced colonization that many of them are trying to do on other ethnic groups, that they see as black, then they would see that they're doing something no different than what those same colonizers did to all of the ancestors that went through slavery. So when I made that comment, person says, yep, totally agree with that part. And then they went on to say, yeah, I don't think that black immigrants should identify as black American. They should identify with whatever culture they come from. I agree, and I have this stance for all cultures regardless of race. Flourish in your respective communities and build bridges. Just don't force people. This person replied, I totally agree. You see how easy the conversation can be when someone understands that there are boundaries and they're willing to respect them? Look how easy that conversation was because they understood, wait, hold on. I'm not trying to be African. I'm African American. I'm a black American and I'm proud of that. Who's telling you not to be proud of that? You should be proud of your heritage. You should be proud of your culture. You should be proud of your history. It's yours to be proud of. But in the same regard, regardless of what country people come from, they have their own ethnicities. Whether they look like you or not, or have the same skin color of you or not. Whether they're Haitian, Jamaican, Dominican, Cuban, Nigerian, Ethiopian, Cambodian, like we can go on and on and on. It goes back to the video. They have their own unique cultures, their own unique way of life, their own unique religion. Why are you trying to take that away from people and tell them to see themselves as black? And if you're going to forcefully colonize people, why would people forcefully identify under the label of black, which is still an identity that the black community is working on? If they're going to identify, why not identify as African and call it a day? But see, no, you don't even want to identify yourself as purely African. You want the distinction that you are a black American or you're African American. Okay, then people want their own distinctions as well. And that can be done and still have respect for each other. But no. Someone needs to assert their dominance over people. Why? Because people seem to have a mission for your body. They're like recruiting you into some army. What? No, God did not. No, man. No, guys. God did not create you for that. People have choices. I understand that many of us had ancestors that at some point in time, their choices were robbed from them, but they worked very, very hard to get many of their choices and their liberties back. And that is not for other people to take, manipulate it, and take advantage of people. So let me play this video very quickly that I posted where I talked about the evil of race loyalty. And now you guys will see what I mean. You know how ridiculous this race nonsense is? People expect the dove, the lion, the scorpion, the snake, right? The giraffe, all to be in like this one environment together, and they're all supposed to stick together because literally they're the same color. Like, oh my gosh, no, the reason we're in here is because of the white wolf. So now the black wolf is in here saying, no, we have to unify. But yo, the black anaconda is back here strangling the sheep. Like, you know what I mean? Like the giraffe just got stung by the scorpion. You get what I'm saying? Like, there's some real hell happening here. And now all of a sudden now the cage is open and the wolf and the snake have now come together and said, no, you guys aren't supposed to leave. If you leave, you're not with us. Listen, we were never supposed to be around each other in the first place. I never wanted to be around a snake. I never wanted to be around a wolf. I'm a lioness. I want to be in my pride. That's where I want to be. And I don't care the color of my pride. I want to be in my pride. And people are trying to force, us to come together by color when there's pure demons. So I could literally be an angelic being and you're trying to force me to be in alignment with a whole full-blown demon. Why? Because we're wearing the same skin suit? The devil is a liar. I'm not doing it. I want to be treated properly and I will be treated properly. And I'm not waiting on some skin color to get to the decision that, yes, we're going to unify and actually be kind people. No, I want kindness now. I mean, guys, what's so difficult to comprehend about that? Like, I don't feel like what I'm saying, and I know a lot of you guys agree, I don't feel like what I'm saying is that complicated to understand. People are making it complicated. Why? They're only making it complicated because they don't want to agree because the lie serves them better than the truth. The lie that we're all one because of our skin color serves them better than the truth. There's many people right now, guys, that if they don't have that black or that white or whatever to stand on, they have nothing, because they have not developed themselves nor evolved enough as a human being to be able to deliver some kind of value or some type of message that can cross beyond race, cross beyond gender, cross beyond all of that. Just simply human beings find value in it. Who they are is not valuable enough for human beings across the board. It's only valuable for that one little small group that they are basically catering to. Listen, if that's your limitation, that's your limitation. But please don't try to go around putting your limitation on other people. And then the worst part is accosting people and then calling them out their name. And then when they don't want to fall in line, accusing them of being white supremacists. Just nonsense, just pure ignorance and nonsense. You see, this man, Mr. Philip Scott, has enough understanding, enough comprehension. Like, it's crazy, like enough comprehension to get that the N-word was literally a demonic term. But yet he lacks the critical thinking to go deeper into that N-word to see the extent to which it goes. And he will understand that his whole pro-black mindset and identity is still rooted in that same demonic assertion. It's the same thing. And listen, if he wants to hold on to it, that's his prerogative. That's his business. That's between him and his God. But when it's all said and done, anybody who wears this skin color deserves the right and has the right to be as diverse as they choose to be. They can think for themselves. They don't have to fall into brainwashing. They don't have to fall into occult practices. They don't have to basically be pushed and herded to go in certain directions and they must do this because of their skin color. No, people have the right to make their own decisions. People have the right to think for themselves. And you can still have the ability to operate in your freedom and still be aware of the biases and the threats around you and do what's necessary to protect you and your family. But you do not have to go around with a woe is me attitude, and you do not have to go around thinking that the boogeyman is everywhere you go. Think about how foolish somebody could be to think that a wolf or the devil has a skin color. A spirit has a color. The Bible says we wrestle not against flesh and blood. So I'm going to read it to you the way the scripture says. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. We wrestle not against flesh and blood. We wrestle not against flesh and blood. But look at the mentality that he's locked in. He genuinely thinks flesh is the devil. He genuinely thinks that the color of a flesh is the devil. Like, that's what he believes with all his heart. He will bet his bottom dollar on that. He genuinely believes that. Okay. Just because you consider people to be black does not mean they have to join you in that same kind of thinking. No one has to. He said that he doesn't care if you're using the N-word as a term of endearment. It's not happening. He said it's not a form of taking your power back. Okay, well, what is black power then? Is that not taking the power back? Is that not the same thing? Is it not the same thing? It's so funny how people want to attack the liars, but they don't want to tear up the lie. They want to attack all of the agents that the lie produces. It's basically like, it's like someone who's allergic to mangoes and someone who hates when mangoes fall into their yard. They're allergic to mangoes. And season after season, they're fighting the mangoes. They're upset at every single mango. But the reality is the tree is going to produce that fruit. So if you no longer want that fruit in your yard, you have to uproot the tree. What is the tree? The tree is the separation. The tree is what took humans from being humans and made them into categories of race. And this is the interesting part, guys, is that science has already proven that this category of race is wrong. Like, it doesn't exist. But yet, just looking at our governmental structures, it still identifies people by race. If you're fighting systemic racism, wouldn't it make sense to undo that label to begin with? Wouldn't it make sense to eradicate that label? Wouldn't it make sense to get rid of that label black? Wouldn't it make sense to point out, at least I understand that at the social level, there's still going to be a lot of issues because people have biases. But at the government level, shouldn't that be gone? Shouldn't the government be up to date and present with the fact that, okay, guys, we should not be using race. It's wrong. I want to be clear, guys. Anyone that knows me knows that when it comes to representation, I am pro representing people of color in the best light possible because I understand how slanderous so much of the information has been out there. But see, you can be undoing a dark work, but be aware of the truth at the same time. I don't have to wear the identity of darkness just to be in opposition of it. Many ancestors, when they died, the last thing that they heard is that you're a Negro, you're a Negroid, you're black. This is why you deserve this. All of it's all the same thing. It's all the same thing. So yeah, I think it's very sad that so many people are stuck under this label, especially knowing the fact that God put so much greatness in people. And I talked to you guys about this. God put his gifts inside of humans. He didn't put his gifts inside of a skin color. We're all going to have our own challenges and own things that we have to overcome in this earth to bring God's gifts forward. Nonetheless, every single human being has a gift that God deposited in them. Every single one. And if you have the cure to cancer inside of you, if you had the cure to COVID inside of you, trust me, nobody was going to care about your skin color. That's the level of value you have to bring. That's how serious you have to be about your gift. You have to be so serious about cultivating the gift inside of you that it does not matter what exterior that gift is in. It doesn't matter if it's an exterior of being a woman. It doesn't matter if it's in the exterior of being an elderly person, a youth. Doesn't matter if you're an exterior of being, whatever race people want to categorize you as, whatever label. You hone into the gift that God put inside of you and you deliver it. You deliver it and you make heaven proud. That's it. And let God do the rest. Me sitting here is me allowing what God has inside of me to be poured out. He does the rest. He does the rest. So yeah, guys, I want you guys to take a look at this video because I thought it was just so ironic that here this guy is, like I said, being so dishonest about the things I said on my previous videos. Yes, yet here he is basically just literally building the points that I've been making the entire time. Some people just choose to be disagreeable, even when it's nothing to disagree against. But it's just that the truth doesn't serve some people. Some people, the lie is in their best interest. And the truth of the matter is, you guys know it. When it comes to this black thing, whether they're black, white, or whatever, for many people, seeing you as a race is much more lucrative and much more beneficial than seeing you as a human being. But just because it's beneficial to them, like he said, doesn't make it beneficial to you. And you have to know the difference. Not only do you have to know the difference between what is most beneficial to you, but you also have to still have awareness that there are people that do not want to see you as God's creation. I mean, let's be real. He literally just called them the spawns of Satan. An entire race? Okay. 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 Anyways, guys, let's keep the conversation going. Protect your mind. Protect your peace. What does the scripture say? The scripture says, do not be conformed to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Let's keep doing that. The purpose of the content that I bring to this channel is so that we can do just that, renew our minds. That's it. Continuing to renew our minds. And I thank God for giving us the ability and the freedom to do that. And I thank God for all the people that came before us that made the sacrifices necessary so that we have the freedom and liberty to do that. Okay, guys, till next time.